So he's gone in there, and I don't know whether he was doing a number 1 or number 2, but anyway, somewhere in the
bowels of the earth.
Yeah, the mobile phone. Well, to stop the smell coming up, they've got that flap that kind of flaps down, then springs shut.
Oh no!
His mobile phone's got donk, slide.
They're going to be Hill and they're going to be Hopkins, and they cross the line. It's Hill by 6 thousandths of a second.
The Outside Line Podcast, reuniting your hosts, the legendary commentary duo of Jack Bernicle and James Whitham.
But he's not on the right side of him unless he can do it. Oh no! Round the outside. Oh, what a move!
Powered by Red Torpedo.
Welcome to episode 5 of The Outside Line. I'm Jack Bernicle, and we're here courtesy of Red Torpedo. Hence the fact that I'm looking so smart. We're going to survive. We're going to survive, Mr. Whitham, beyond episode 5.
Yeah.
As I said, thanks to Red Torpedo, and also, apparently, to Sprout the Dog, because he's got himself a sponsor, James.
Yeah, he's flying. He's got himself an agent, a sponsor in the form of Metzler. Metzler tyres have helped me for some years now with the track days. Fantastic company. The product's brilliant. We really get on with it well on the track days. But actually, they're interested now in sponsoring Sprout. So he's got his tyre bed there. That he's not just quite got used to that yet. We'll see how we go.
I thought for a moment he was going to do you the honour of sitting in it.
We only get paid.
He's just having a stretch.
We only get paid if he spends any time in the Metzler bed. So come on, Sprout. Come on.
Sprout, look, over there is where you belong. That's it.
Yeah, we'll see. But actually, he's getting a little bit hard to talk to now, he's Sprout. Yeah.
Right, well, on to more pressing things, like British Superbikes.
Yes,
what is going on with British Superbikes? There was a wonderful round at Thruxton, where the already verging on 32-year-old, to my amazement, Danny Kent, was the man of the weekend.
Yeah.
But, the championship has been rather turned on its head, hasn't it?
Yeah,
it's
brilliant.
Very close.
Yeah, it's been, in terms of championship, it's so much better. And sorry, Brad, for saying this. Basically, overview is Brad Ray's just dominated the championship up to now, up until Brands, slid off at Brands, but was still really, really, really quick at Brands. So that was kind of, you could look at that as a little bit of a blip. Everybody falls off a motorbike occasionally when you're racing. But actually, there's been a complete swing from 52 points in front, right, going into Thruxton, coming out of Cadwell, he's now 2 points behind Kyle Ryde. And most of that damage was done at Brands and at Thruxton and at Cadwell. Obviously, he's kind of made mistakes at all of them, if you like. This isn't just a bit of a blip and then he's back on top. It is a genuine kind of swing in the championship. That said, you still look at him and you still talk to him and think, that he's not doing one of them spirals into oblivion as yet. He still knows why
he's still a lad we love.
Yeah, oh God, he's so good. And that's it. And it was same when I worked on British Championship with you, and in a way World Championship a little bit. You like them all that much, and you've that much respect for them all. You actually don't want to do anybody a disservice if they're not having a good sort of weekend. But Brad's he's still going to be one of the men to be in the championship, definitely. But in terms of championship to watch, it's been really exciting for a lot of reasons. But the swing in the championship has been a big interest. And
also at Thruxton, we saw Glenn Irwin on a Yamaha, which came as something of a surprise after our last episode, didn't it?
To us all.
Yeah.
It looked a bit of a surprise to Glenn Irwin when I saw him in pit lane as well. Yeah, an odd one. I mean, we spoke about it a little bit last time. He got hurt at Snetterton. It was going to be Snockhill, which he did. I think the team didn't expect him back quickly.
Yeah.
For whatever reason. I don't know. I thought he was more injured than what he was. I mean, you can say broken pelvis, but that can mean many things. I certainly wouldn't have been coming back after 4 weeks from my broken pelvis. It was a big number. I don't think anybody would have been. But anyway, he's pinned and screwed and wants to come back for Thruxton. But now the PBM team, have got Scott Redding on his bike and don't seem to want to give it the bike back to Glenn. And listen, I don't know what has gone on. I don't want to put anybody in a, offend anybody by what I'm saying, but you would think that they'd want their original rider back that they had a contract with, and the standing rider would then step aside. They were saying they were going to put 2 bikes out. That was practically impossible. I guess financially it would have been a massive challenge to put a second bike out for Scott. Technically, staff, it would have been a big challenge. But actually, where are you going to get a V4R Corsa Ducati? You can't just buy them. You're not nipping down to your local Aldi and flipping walking out one of them from the centre aisle.
Ducati have never been that keen on kind of handing stuff over on that score, have they? From the kind of as a factory bike almost.
Well, that's what you're buying. You're buying a Corsa. You're buying a bike. You're not buying a road bike like an R1 and creating a British Superbike out of it. You're buying a race bike from Ducati. You're paying a lot of money for it. You get a bike that they've produced and is fit for purpose. There's a lot of money, and as you'd expect. And you've got to order them 6 months in advance.
Yeah.
And they won't even supply some teams if they don't think the team's fit to run one. So that basically running 2 bikes were never going to be an option, in my opinion. This is only my opinion, but I don't think it would have happened. So then there's the issue that PBM had. Well, the original riders coming back, they quite liked the idea that Scott's on their bike, had a brilliant Brands Hatch, remember? Yes. And then they've got a problem. And we thought the problem would be a lot bigger than it was, because we thought Glenn would, invoke his right to the contract, because it would have been in a contract. What happens if an injured and all that? They can put someone in the back. It's obviously going to be in a contract. But then they've parted company on good terms, and he's now riding an OMG Yamaha that didn't exist when Joe Talbot were promised it pre-season. I don't know. Suddenly, OMG have wheeled an R1 out, a really nice one, and now Glenn's on that. So, hey, listen, don't ask me. I have not a clue what's happening.
And Joe, of course, won his first Super Sport race at Cadwell Park.
Yeah, well, we'll actually get onto that, why he was on a Super Sport bike this season. And I've got a lot of time for Joe, honestly. He's quite special, in my opinion. Again, I think Joe's got a lot of good things in terms of his racing. But we haven't finished on Thruxton yet. Thruxton, Jack, you'd have loved it. It was an unbelievable meeting. We always say this about Thruxton for a lot of reasons. Brilliant thing about BSB is all the circuits are different, so everyone suits a different bike or a different rider. But thing about Thruxton, as well as that, it's big, wide. It's the original Thruxton. They are old school, typically post-World War II British race circuits, and brilliant for it. So consequently, they're really wide and really fast. And Thruxton's all of that. Brilliant place. Loads of grip. They use the best tarmac in the world. You can go around nearly as fast in the wet as you can in the dry. Problem with that is it wears tyres out. But the fact it wears tyres out with a 240 horsepower superbike is the key. That's the key, Jack, because what happens is you cannot, no matter what tyre you put on, this is no disrespect to Pirelli who supply the tyres, because every single tyre I've ever been in, Dunlop, Michelin, Pirelli, they all have problems at Thruxton because of the speed and because of the shape of the circuit and because...
He's thinking about it.
Oh, no.
Sprouts visited his tyre and then departed again after having a little sniff around.
I put half a sausage in there. He hadn't even found that.
He's halfway there. He's halfway there.
He's thinking, isn't he? So anyway, but the key thing for Thruxton is that the tarmac is so grippy, it destroys any tyre, right? Yeah. So the racers don't go off with somebody. If you can do, let's say, if you can do a certain time, and that's a second quicker than anybody else, you're going to win by however many laps a race is times into that many seconds. Not at Thruxton, because if you go off like a rocket, you're definitely going to destroy your tyre. So the first half of the race, at least, is people thinking, how fast? And what that does, it gives everybody a go. Because by the end, maybe a Charlie Nesbitt can just get his nose in there and get stuck up, or a Max Cook, so it's brilliant place, and it didn't disappoint this year. It's fantastic. Brad Rea, you would expect on a Yamaha, suits that place, mid-corner speed, all that, and a clever rider who can conserve a tyre. You'd put your money on Brad. So the problem with that is Brad had tried a new World Superbike team swing arm, because as a rider, you get a new trick thing, you want to put it on, but didn't have time to test it, and really, they didn't really get a chance to set the thing up, which probably would have been better if they've had a couple of days testing. But that cost him any chance of winning. So that, I'm not saying it opened the door, because they all rode brilliantly. So it ended up being a really good meeting for Danny Kent. Danny Kent had a brilliant meeting. We all love Danny. He's such a nice fella. Really quite soft. He needs things to be right. He's typical GP man. If things go in his way and the circuit suits him unbelievably fast. But he struggled a bit this year. They've changed some staff of the team, changed the electronics man. He's now got the bike how he wants it, and he had a spectacular Thruxton. It was really good to see. Kyle Ride, solid, like always. But the shape of the circuit and the actual tarmac and everything else kind of manifested itself in... They're having a good season, but they had a really good Thruxton was Max Cook and Christian Hidden. On what is certainly seen in the paddock cars along in the two Kawasaki, I think it's a better bike than what people are saying. And it's difficult. When you're the only rider on if only one team is running Kawasaki's, you can't really judge where you are with a bike, But they had a brilliant meeting. They both had a podium.
They both had a podium, didn't they?
Brilliant. Really pleased for Max.
What, you mean the 22-year-old and the 40-year-old?
Yeah, and one of the reasons the 40-year-old's putting a shift in is because he don't like getting his arse handed to him by the 22-year-old. But they're best mates and they cycle together and all that. But there's that inter-team rivalry. Yeah. Well, I was really pleased to see that because Darren Fry and Nigel Snook, FS3, is Fry and Snook. That's what FS is. Yeah. And they put a really good team out. And what I see is a bike that is, long in the tooth, not the quickest bike, but them riders know exactly what it's going to do. If you saw what Max Cook was doing, I know if you haven't seen it, if you haven't seen how Max Cook rode in race 1, Thruxton, get it on catch up, watch it. You cannot ride a motorbike like that at any age if you don't know exactly what it's going to do at the limit. And it was on the limit. Closing the throttle, the thing's locking up and sliding into corners. This is 140 mile an hour, 150 mile an hour, village and church down there. Yeah. If you're going down the road, you're losing skin, at least.
Yes.
And he's flipping, backing it in and sliding it out. And then he's going in the chicane. The thing's basically locked the front, had it on his knee. And when the front came back, the rear slid round and just pointed him into the chicane. He just... But you cannot do that. You could do it once and then you crash the next corner, but... He knew exactly what and that when you've got a team that's that cohesive and up for it and knowing they're on the back foot machine wise, but still trying to make it work, and the bike is able to be ridden that hard. I love to see it. Great. They're having a good season, but that was a particular high point.
And there was that moment when he actually ran into the back of, was it Spud Nesbitt?
Yeah.
In church, and there was like whiff of smoke as the tyres touched, and you whoa, what?
Honestly, I've talked to Max about it. I speak to Max quite a bit. I like Max. He's one of them. He should be working in as an apprentice with a shirt on in a council office, arranging people's council tax or something like that. When you speak to him, you would not ever.
I'm sure he'd really appreciate
I've told him. I've said, you shouldn't be able to ride a motorbike like that. He goes, no. He's so nice. And I've talked to him. What he's done, he's kind of got sucked in with the slip team, because even though going into church is a big corner, right? It's a corner, but you're doing like 150. You get a hell of a lot of... At 150, even in a corner, you've got such... momentum from slipstream. So he's got in the slipstream, that teed with a bit of not wanting to close the throttle and not wanting, because he wants to sort of do that coming out the corner, he wants to keep the momentum going. And he's got just basically sucked in the back end of Spud Nesbitt, who, by the way, as one of his best mates, they were brought up together. They brought up in the same town and went minibike racing at the same time together as kids. He shunted in the back end. Spud didn't really know what was going on. He felt a bit of something, but I'm still on. Well, Max said, I thought we were going down. I knew it was happening. And it's locked the front. And it's locked the front at 150 miles an hour. A 1 second lock is going to be what? 70 metres? I don't know, whatever it is. Work it out. But a long locked up front end that then kind of sprung back. and that was, I said, did you think, sometimes you nearly crash, but you know it ain't going to happen. You think, I've got away with this. I said, do you think you're going to crash? He goes, oh yeah, I could smell the hospital already. I knew it were going to hurt. But then, ooh, I'm still on. And actually he says, after that I thought, well, it might be my day. You know, I might as well shove on it,
Yeah.
And have a go. So it's, that would have been a big crash. The only problem for me with Thruxton is if you do have a crash there, it is likely to be at least a fast one.
We've seen a few.
At least a fast one, yeah.
Moving on to Cadwell Park, as we welcome Sprout back to his Metzler residence. Oh, and he looks like he's enjoying it as well. Good.
He's waiting for hair and makeup to turn up.
He's had his clothes done.
Yeah.
Cadwell Park, a throwback to our days of World Superbikes with
Super
Super
Bowl.
Bowl.
Yeah.
Super Bowl.
Yeah,
Memories of poor Norrie Harger hurling himself to oblivion at Clearways at Brands Hatch. And also the rather entertaining music. There's a lot of heavy metal amongst those boys.
Yeah, so basically...
AC/DC and Black Sabbath and the like.
Yeah, so at BSB now, we do one race meeting a year where it's Super Bowl, the traditional Super Bowl. We ran that for years in World Superbike. It first appeared in 97 at Donington Park.
That long ago?
Yeah, honestly.
Wow.
And I remember distinctly because I was out on a Suzuki doing my Super Bowl lap, and as I started it started snowing. It was that April meeting. There wasn't a lot down for me, that meeting.
Special mention for Max Cook, dire straits, money for nothing.
Yeah, so what happens is, just to explain that, you don't hear it on telly much, but for the people around the circuit, they play a chosen song by each rider as they go and do their Super Bowl lap, and there's some odd choices.
Yeah.
Obviously, Bride will always choose something from the Wurzels. I think he's got an album, right? That was the one sale the Wurzels ever got, and it was a Bridewell family. Weirdly, quite a lot of what you'd call metal or heavy rock. There's
From youngsters like Rory Skinner.
Yeah.
As well as the older boys like McConnell.
Yeah, McConnell, but he's AC/DC, isn't he?
Yes, completely.
Yeah, always AC/DC. He's used several.
Or it might have been Black Sabbath. It was one or the other.
No. I think the person who used kind of Ozzy Osbourne Black Sabbath was Leon Haslam. And it turned out to be a mistake because he were having a good Super Bowl lap, and then the last turn, he fell off. And I would definitely blame that on God rest his soul, Ozzy Osbourne. Yeah. Saying that, Haslam salvaged something, because if you fall down in Super Bowl, you go back to basically 15th.
Yes.
You end up.
Yeah.
So, but especially at Cadwell, that's a flipping long way back, because they run, because it's such a narrow circuit, they spread the grid right out, and it's fair.
Yes.
What you don't want is everybody piling into turn one together. So we know how dangerous that is. So it's not just spread, it's spread out as far as they can, the three riders that way. But because they can't spread that much that way, they spread it out kind of that way. So each line isn't a line, it's a diagonal line. So that 15th on the grid is a long way back. So that was a big uphill task for Haslam. But he actually managed to salvage over the weekend, if I'm remembering right, a 7th and an 8th, where he did make mistakes in races. He's struggling to stop the bike and ran on a couple of times, but actually got a 4th. When things were going well, given the fact that he hadn't qualified so well because that slide off at Barn, he was going well, was Leon. Good.
Amongst all the youngsters.
Yeah. Cadwell's a great meeting. But the racing was fantastic. Flipping great racing. Brad Rea, I think, was determined to put the Brands crash and the Thruxton sort of slip, with his... He didn't get the results we used to seeing him get. So he's going to go to Cadwell. He was fastest every single session by a fair bit. You would have had your money on him. First race, he's put a 1.5 seconds into everybody in a lap and a half. It's massive. Massive. You can imagine that at that level. Club race, yeah. If you get a talented lad, he can put time into people easily. But at that level, he's disappearing. In a lap and a half, if somebody's pulled a 1.5 seconds on you, as the second place man, you're going, well, that's it. Then I'm fighting for second. And he's on the change of direction, and he's going hard. Gooseneck, it's Chris's curve, it tightens up and then left. So you're going right, tighter left and then, tighter right and then left. And lost the front. There's a bit of a dip, and it's easily done. I've done it. Most people have done it, but he was going so quick. So I think the reason it happened was his determination to put the other 2 meetings behind him and show people what he can do. A meeting he dominated qualifying.
Well, I was going to say that was after he'd edged Kyle in the first race, hadn't he?
Yeah. Kyle went with him though.
Yeah.
Kyle had I think it put. I think it got up to about 2.5 seconds at one point in race 1 that Brad had a lead. And you just thought nobody's catching that back. We were saying in comms he's watching his lap board and he's controlling it from the front, but actually for whatever reason. He's sort of eased up a little bit, then couldn't go again when his lap board saying, "Hey up, Kyle's on your tail here," and so it ended up and I was really pleased for Kyle that because Kyle's been in Brad's shadow a little bit. I'm sorry, Kyle, because we all like Kyle Rye, but he's always almost given Brad a little bit too much respect, if you know what I mean, in my opinion. Anyway, Kyle went with him and had a little bit of he had a couple of goals at him actually, and that attempt he had going at the inside at Chris Curve, that's 130, I don't know, fast corner, and it tightens up, and there's only really one line at the end of it before the gooseneck, and they've actually, Brad didn't know he was there. Kyle got a little bit level, and then he's done that with the front wheel of Kyle. That would have been a big accident. So really pleased that it didn't end in a bad way, and really pleased Kyle had a go at it, and then he had another little bit of a go at the hairpin, and he pushed on. And had a go at Brad, so really pleased with that.
It was great to see Andy Irwin and Honda, of course, very much their local track, just up the road at Louth, and back on the podium. But although I was rather stunned to remember that he's just coming up 31.
Yeah,
I'm thinking, how's Andy Irwin got into his 30s?
Andy's not the youngster that he was, and you tend to, you kind of, you can't say acts young. He does act young. He's a young, young kind of feel about him, but no, he's not one of the younger ones now. He's kind of in the middle years of his BSB career, I would have said. But really good to see him going well. He's had a little bit of pace at various places. He had pace at Brands, had a really big crash coming out of Sheen Curve. And he has dropped off it a bit this year. Really needed a result. It is their home circuit, but that's not to say they're doing any more testing there than everybody else. Everybody has the same wherewithal to know the place. But they are based down the road, so it is their traditional home, really. Andy Irwin got 2/3 and a second, I think, over the weekend at Cadwell, which that's a win, is that?
Yeah.
For me, because where they've been, and I was just begging he didn't try that hard to win, that he chucked it in the trees again, because Andy has that potential. Wears his heart on his sleeve. He's very brave, and therefore very, very prepared to do something where you think, well, I take my hat off to, but them kind of people, it sometimes goes wrong, and when it does, it tends to be bigger. So I think the whole paddock were pleased for Andy, because he needed it. He really needed it. And actually, his teammate Bridwell had an unbelievable weekend as well. They've just found something. They just have something. And they have been testing, and they did have things, they did have direction to go with setup, and it seems to have worked. So absolutely really pleased for it. You don't want to see somebody struggling, and you really don't want to see somebody that, like Honda Racing, that supported this championship forever.
Oh, forever, yeah.
You don't want to see him struggling. So, yeah, good meeting for Honda, it was. And Bridwell was as determined as he ever has been. I spoke to him on the grid for the sprint race, I think, and he was just flipping lasers for eyes. You didn't want to look at him because it might have hurt you. And he swore a bit. But you can tell when he gets really determined, he swears. And then I've got to apologise on telly. I'm sorry for his language.
How often have you guys had to do that with him?
I know. But anyway, rode hard to get his win. So, yeah, brilliant. Really pleased for Honda.
I was checking out the kind of standings in the British Superbike Championship right now, and besides the fact that Kyle is now 2 points ahead of Brad, it's what's going on behind them is almost equally ridiculous. Like Leon is on 192, 10 points ahead of Danny Kent.
Yep.
And Danny's 2 points ahead of Rory Skinner, who's fifth. And then sixth for Ido, who's 8 points back.
Yep.
And then Tommy 6 points back from there on 166. So there's a gap of 20 points back to Max Cook. But then you've got Josh Brooks, Andy Irwin, who's 1 point behind Josh. Storm Stacey, who's 10 points ahead of Scott Redding, who's 1 point ahead of Spud Nesbitt. So you've got an amazing amount of places to be fought over.
Yeah,
right through that.
There's
top
little
dozen.
battles going all the way through
Yeah.
that, but the fact is that it wasn't like that. Certainly at the front, there was a 52-point lead for Brad Rea.
Yes,
Now
yes.
he's second in the championship. That sort of third, fourth, fifth keeps changing. Danny Kent go up to third at one point. Now Aslam's jumped back in front of him after Cadwell. Christian Eden having a brilliant season, really consistent. Lots of fourth places, fifth places. So he's, I think, fifth in the championship. That's brilliant for them. So there's loads to shout about. I mean, notwithstanding that, the championship points favours that a little bit, but it's all brilliant. I mean, I'm not complaining. The 18, 16, 14, 12 kind of format on the early part of the season.
That compresses things rather.
Does compress things a little bit. One of the highlights for me was the fact that we've talked about Andy Irwin, top side of 30 now. Christian, top side of 40.
Yes.
Even Danny Kent, top side of 30. So the younger end now, your three younger men are Max Cup, Charlie Nesbitt and Storm Stacey, all very different people.
And Scott Swan.
And Scott Swan.
Yeah.
But I mentioned those three because they had a real set to in one of the races at Cadwell.
Yes.
And for a few laps. And it was, for me, that sort of epitomised the young ones are coming on really, really well. And so they're definitely going to be the future of BSB. One of the lowlights or weird things at Cadwell with the fact that I'm just about to do a grid walk and everybody's ready to go and Matt's at the front with James.
Oh, there was a generator failure, television generator failure, wasn't there?
Yeah. I don't know what, nobody knew what had happened. I knew I'd lost my ears because but for those at home, you've got your ears in where you're being directed what to do. Right, your grid walk starts in 2 minutes, 1 minute, etc. And then when you've got to count out, you're all directed with these, in your ear. And he just went off, and I looked at my cameraman, Ash, who, to be fair, is the most laid-back person anyway. So asking him what was going on might have been a mistake at this point. Right? He went. So then I went to the front, out of camera shot, because they were still on Matt. It hadn't handed to us yet, so it's still on Matt, James, and Shaky. They're just talking normal. So I thought, it's just us. And then when the camera went to James Hayden as he's speaking, I knew Matt was off camera, so he went. So I knew they were off, and they're only keeping going just in case they were going out to air, but they didn't know that.
Yeah.
So you just keep going until you're told otherwise. So then a runner came down and said, "No, it's all off. Everything's off. A generator's gone down." Problem with that is, as it turns out, and I don't know any of this because I'm flipping a numpty, but in terms of technical stuff, but when a generator goes down, that's why they have two huge generators that are supplied by MSV, and they have two because if one goes down, just that kind of emergency. The problem is when one goes down, they swap to the next almost immediately, but it was the system to stop a dropout in between that was the issue, apparently, so I'm told. And the problem with that is once it drops out, the reboot time is quite long. It turned out to be about 30 minutes. You can't just turn it back on. Right. It takes a long time to reboot everything. I can't tell you how complicated it is, but people at home, it is so complicated. The amount of wires and stuff and different aspects that has to merge with that. And honestly, it's brain frying kind of, I'm not going to say technology because I think a lot of it's quite old technology, but complicated. There's wires everywhere, man. It's a flipping...
Yeah, and any outside broadcast is like
this. Yeah. So anyway, that went down. It took them 30 minutes to get it back on. Bless them at BSB. They actually waited for us, because one of the important things about BSB is it's sold on the back of TV, obviously.
Yes.
In terms of sponsorship and that. So they waited for us and we had a cracking race. And I think because it was such a good race and because the weather were good and because the people didn't mind spending an extra 30 minutes sat on a grass banking, you'd do that anyway if there's no racing on.
It's a BSB crowd, isn't it? They love the stuff.
And it was a big crowd.
Yes.
So we kind of got away with it, really. It's difficult at Cadwell because there's loads of figures bounded about. I know it was busier than I've ever seen at Cadwell in my time of racing. You might get Mick Grant saying, no, we had 200,000 people here in 1970, whatever. But actually, in my time of racing or been involved with the commentary, I think it's probably the biggest crowd I've seen at Cadwell. And you hear figures like, 60,000 over the weekend, 55,000. But I think Monday was the busiest day, and all weekend we're busy.
It's always worked as a bank holiday. Always worked.
Yeah.
It never worked as well if it was stuck on a normal weekend.
And it's picturesque, and the forecasts were brilliant, and everything went for it. And Thruxton were a good race. So if you were thinking about maybe going or not going, you watch Thruxton and go, Christ, we're going to Cadwell now,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah.
So I think everything made for a well-attended meeting. But I think, I'm going to say probably between 30 and 40,000, I would have said, on Monday, which just brilliant, really good. I got to mention before we finish with Cadwell, super stock for a start.
Oh, Mickelchick won it. Was that his first? It would be his first time there, wouldn't it?
His first time everywhere. Sometimes he's done a few laps at a track day that isn't as easy as you think.
Yeah.
Because there's people on track days where if you're going his pace you can't do that.
Yeah.
You know, but you can have a look round, I guess, at a track day and see which corner comes next. But that's about all you can do. So to turn up at places like Brands Hatch, Alton, but especially Cadwell. Cadwell has more, as a rider, more quirky nuance in there. There's off camber, uphill, downhill, blind crest. It's just flipping nuts. There's so much that'll catch you out that to go there and actually took all weekend to get going, but then win his race in the last few laps. Incredible, honestly. It is incredible. And it annoyingly good. If you're somebody like, David Alliam or Josh Owens.
Yeah.
Who were having good seasons, but
Yes.
they had just been taught a lesson by a bloke who is very talented. The good thing about it is he's loving. I ask him every single meeting, do you enjoy Alton? Do you enjoy Cadwell? He says, yes. He's very plain. He's very businesslike. But yeah, flipping heck, he's exceptional.
Does this? It doesn't seem to in any way relate to the fact that he was a 4-time IDM champion in Germany, which obviously uses a lot of, it uses tracks like Assen as outside of Germany. Obviously.
Yeah. I mean,
but so they're kind of proper Grand Prix tracks.
Hey,
in
listen,
a way.
we knew he had the talent, right? His world endurance stuff, his IDM stuff, his odd timing, World Superbike, who he stood in for. He's BMW man. He stood in for BMW and World Superbike. Also done stock Thau in his time at European level.
Yeah.
So he's got the credentials. However, that doesn't mean anything. We've had people come to the UK and race BSB who have just as good credentials, right?
Davide Gianeri amongst them, and that was the end of his career, really.
And the heads have fallen off.
Yeah.
So to do what he's doing is particularly impressive. Also in Super Sport, that racing was brilliant as well, but really pleased for Joe Talbot. Joe Talbot should have had, the background is he should have had an OMG ride on Superbike, perfect for him. A bike that was a known quantity, a bike that was good, a team that was good, and teammates that he could learn off in Brad Rea and Kyle Ryde. That fell apart, we all know about that. The fallout was he didn't have a ride in Superbike, so disappointment there. Binch Racing picked him up, brilliant team running Ducatis. They've run Yamahas up to this year. So the team's learning the bike. It's very different. It's a V2. He's learning the Super Sport class, never ridden it before, and learning the Ducati. Struggled in the dry a little bit, 7th, 8th, 5th. Excelled in the wet and in the damp. He's had good results at Brands in just those conditions. Really starting to find his feet a little bit at Thruxton. Cadwell was exceptional. Had a 4th and a win, and it was absolutely brilliant. Just a great meeting for Joe. And I like Joe. I mean, I'm a little bit biased. I like him. He instructs for me a bit on my track days. But I like him. I like he's so serious about... Yes?
He's just having a stretch and wagging his tail.
He's a funny lad and a fun-loving lad. You should be at 21, off the bike. But actually at meetings, he's very serious. You can be... I have to say to him... I've said to him on the grid when the grid was, are you happy? He goes, yeah. I've said, well, tell your face. You smile. And you have to keep reminding him to smile. He is loving what he's doing, but he's so serious about what he does. And he had a good meeting. It's good to see, and I'm pleased for Binch, and I'm pleased for him.
So, James, Mickelchick, is he likely to be staying around, and would he be looking for a superbike ride next year?
Loads and loads of speculation. Now that people know that he's got the metal for the British tracks, as well as the speed on the Grand Prix tracks that we knew other people did that didn't make the switch to BSB, I think there's going to be loads of offers for him. I think that would be the so. It'd be great if you're on BM, because it'd be nice to see a BM somewhere near the front of BSB, wouldn't it?
Yeah. And he could be the man to do it.
Yeah. Also, very un-PC saying this, but nice looking girlfriend. She's lovely. You've got a bit of form, Jack. You can't deny.
James, it's a reputation I'm trying to leave behind. So
all right, sorry. Well, and I've just probably stabbed my head in the foot saying that.
You've just put me right back in the muck.
Cool.
Talking of muck, what happened to Shaky and his mobile phone?
Oh, did you hear? Oh,
no.
Best thing ever.
Well, I just heard a whiff.
The racing was...
Literally.
Yeah, exactly that. The racing was fantastic at Thruxton, some of the best. But the highlight for many people who saw it in the TV compound. So what you've got, you know all this, TV compound is a compound with all the TV trucks in. There's quite a lot of it. There's a couple of Arctics. Yeah. The director sits in there, lots of screens. You can imagine. Lots of stuff.
And some essential mobile lavatories.
And some essential mobile lavatories, yes. The type that are just the crane-in ones. It's a self-contained plastic, poo pot underneath, plastic seat, all the rest of it. You know the ones. So he's gone in there, and I don't know whether he was doing a number 1 or number 2, but anyway, somewhere in the
bowels of the earth.
Yeah, the mobile phone. Well, to stop the smell coming up, they've got that flap that kind of flaps down, then springs shut.
Oh no!
His mobile phone's got donk, slide. Right? And then, this wasn't on Friday. Go on, Sprout. This wasn't on Friday when the thing were likely to be reasonably empty. Oh, no.
Oh.
This is Sunday morning.
When it was well stacked.
There's 3 days worth of effluent in there, right? So then it's a big panic. Number 1 is panicking because he doesn't know how long. It's clearly underwater, his phone. It's clearly under, it's below the surface. So he doesn't know how long his phone's going to stand it without being wrecked and lose all his info. Like, you don't want to lose your phone, do you?
No.
So
absolutely.
He can't get his hand in there because it's just, he don't know how it works. It might be, I don't know whether there's I don't know what there is.
Might lose his hand.
Yeah, so he comes out and raises the alarm, as it were. And so, obviously, the first thing you're going to do is wet your pants with laughing, right, which we all did. It was just hilarious, right?
I honestly don't think I've ever seen Shaky panic. Did he?
He was trying to maintain that air of cool shakiness.
Yes.
However, he was panicking, right?
Yeah.
And it's obviously quite embarrassing. His phone's going to stink and all that. He can't make a joke out of it because it just it is for us. So then Ren Hiscott is a lady that works for us, who's fantastic. She's like your mum. She just cares about everything.
Yes.
So she obviously gets involved. It involved sticks, I remember. Somebody took a belt off at one stage. There were... It's fantastic. Listen,
there wasn't anybody in the mobile toilet business around that you could seek advice from. Then it just had to be.
So eventually, I don't actually know how they got it out, but then what were involved was lots of these. One of these toilets had the alcohol, the sort of COVID kind of handy stuff. So they've used a lot of that and a hell of a lot of kitchen roll and
on the phone.
Yeah.
And it survived.
It worked. It didn't smell so good. And after that, on Sunday, we're all in the press position. Me, couple of 3 cameramen, a sound man, a director, and obviously me, James, Shaky, and Matt. And at various days, we couldn't smell the phone, right? It's in his pocket, but we kept going. And by then he's going. And then when his phone rings, everyone's going, whoa, back off. It's just the highlight. Oh, dear.
We
Shaky, he's one of them blokes who we're taking mick out. Shaky's ace, right? We love him. Yeah. He's brilliant at his job, knows his stuff, very successful racer, everything going for him, right? But he's one of these has a certain kind of a certain personality, and part of that is how it's nature and nurture, but certainly some of it's nurture. And he's the man who, if he goes in to buy a car, and he don't mind he's buying a car, an house, or whatever he's doing, he ticks every box without reading what it is. You know, you get when you go and buy a car, brand new. You bought brand new cars. Do you want the aircon?
Me?
Nah,
I've never bought a brand new car in my life. No.
Right. Well, most people have, I guess, at some stage. So you get these tick boxes. Do you want the leather interior? How much? The leather interior is going to be 2,000. No, sorry, I'll leave it. Shaker don't even read what's on it. It just goes tick, 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 tick,
Oh,
tick,
right,
tick,
right.
tick, tick. There you go. Whatever it is.
I would
Even
definitely
if
be the
never gonna-
former.
If he's never going to use it right, and the joke for us is, all you got to do to spin. He's got a Vito van that's got. It's everything. It's got
Yes.
everything. And the joke is between us that all you got to do to spin Shaky out you'd have to whatever a switch of something to switch something on that he's never used in his van at all. He won't even know what it is. But if you took that switch out, took it off, leave the wires behind the dash, and put a cover, because a lot of these things have covers on. If you don't tick the box, they just put a blanking cover. Just put a blanking plate in it. His head would drop off. What? It wouldn't be able to survive. Somebody's anyway. But yeah, the phone incident, phone gate was,
Phone gate.
and this took some time. It's half an hour's worth of hilarity for us.
Yeah.
It's brilliant. Yeah.
This weekend, Donington Park. Always wonderful to go back to Donington Park. Fabulous memories of my first time there with World Superbikes back in '98.
Yep.
But here we are with 4 sprint races. So 12 lappers? Two on each day?
I haven't even seen the schedule, but we're all assuming there's definitely 4 sprint races, 4 12-lap races
Yes.
at Donington to make up for the race that was cancelled after the Supersport tragedy at Alton.
Yeah.
But they decided to do it in 12-lap format. We're all assuming 2 Saturday, 2 Sunday. I think it's been really well received at Paddock. I think people are really quite looking forward to that. Okay. More points on offer because the 12-lap races, unlike the sprint race at World Superbike, it's full points.
Yeah.
For the shorter race at BSB, I think it will give the crowd something a little bit different to watch. The sprint races generally go down quite well, with the punters. It generally, because it's shorter race, you don't have to manage tyres so much. If you make a good start, you can kind of cling on there. If you're a Max Cook or So I think the punters like the cut and thrust. Let's say the urgency of a sprint race. So I think it'll go down well, and it seems to have gone down well at Paddock. The idea of it, and it is happening.
Have you got any thoughts on who might come up with the goods at Donington Park? Who particularly? Actually, Kyle particularly likes the place, doesn't he? He regards that as pretty much his local track.
Yeah, and he's excelled there before. He's won races there,
and also he's finished. He's the only man who's finished every race this year.
Every single race.
Yeah.
Oh, there's the only man in the top 4 or 5. Yeah.
Yes.
There is other than the championship low down, but Kyle is exceptionally reliable in terms of results. Don't want to flip in jinx him, but Kyle's turned into this big picture man, and I'm not saying Brad isn't, and I'm not saying Kyle is immune to sliding off his bike. That's part of racing, but Kyle over the last couple of seasons has just looks at the big picture. He doesn't panic when Brad's handing him his backside early on this season. I never saw him panic. Even when we interviewed him, he's not. He just.
I don't think he's ever panicked since he was a kid.
No, I don't think he has. But certainly these days, he is big picture man.
Yeah.
Remember, he won his championship last year. He didn't lead that championship, It was pretty much Tommy who led for most of the last season.
Yeah.
And season before, he's ended up higher in the championship at the end than he has the majority of the year. And I remember I kept saying to Kyle, plan A. He goes, plan A still. And even when he didn't win on a weekend, it was still, that's part of plan A, don't worry about it. And that's he's really good at looking at the thing in the round, as it were.
Yes. Yeah.
And I'm not saying others aren't, because Brad definitely is as well. He's just had a little bit of a bad run lately. So you'd have to go, Donington, you'd have to go probably Kyle. Let's think about top point scorer. Of the 4 races at Donington, I would say Kyle would be right up the front in terms of points. Brad has to be, and he knows he has to be, is dominated there earlier this season. So you've got to put some money on him if you're a betting man. But who knows? People have also gone well there. Glenn Irwin, why not? He's won races there before. The Yam suits that place. He's had a bit of time on it now. Big ask, I know. Andy Irwin, he's run up front of races before there, and also he's coming off the back of Cadwell. And if anybody is going to put a shift in after having a good meeting and have the kind of minerals to do it, it's Andy Irwin. So who knows? It's going to be a good meeting, I think.
Wide open. I think it's time for a game. It's time for a game.
Right.
Don't look so apprehensive.
Let's embarrass Whittam again. It's time for a game.
I think yes. I think Revs Roulette might be in the offer.
Okay, yeah.
Revs Roulette, powered by Red Torpedo.
Right, it's time for Revs Roulette, which always frightens the wits out of me, really. We've already done Brands, Thruxton, Assen, Snetterton.
That's your four we've done.
Those are the ones we've already done.
So we've got left, I reckon, Donington, we've got Cadwell,
Knockhill.
we've got Knockhill, and what else?
Alton Park.
Yeah.
And apparently Tim's threatening to have put Navarro in there.
Well,
as well.
no, he said it might be somewhere that they go testing, so that'd be either probably most. The official test was Navarra this year, but a lot of them go to Almeria or. Don't matter, I'm across them.
Great. Oh, you're across them, are you?
As they say.
I'm glad to hear it, Mr. Whittam. Right, Revs Roulette it is. We'll start off, of course, with the rather unpleasant sound of the hooter.
Yes, this is motorbike going around the track.
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
Hooter on start and finish.
Yes. Whoa, that frightened us, Sprout.
Connect. Big fast corner, bike sliding. Fair straight. Slower. Second gear, that's quite a tight corner. A lot of sliding.
Wow.
Blowing heck. Right, so.
Considering he's a racing dog, that seemed to quite alarm him the way he was climbing all over.
He don't like
you.
the engine noise either.
No.
No. He don't like that.
All right, Sprouty.
He's thinking...
Have you got any answers there, Sprout? Were you favouring any particular track?
Sprout is thinking, Christ, I'm glad I can't reach the handlebars. That is a complex circuit. What do we have left?
Alton Park.
Cadwell Park.
Oh, Cadwell, yes.
Yeah. Donington. And it could be Navarra, we reckon.
Yes. That was what Tim was threatening to throw into the mix.
Right, so...
Have you ever ridden Navarro?
Yeah, but only on a bike launch. I've never raced it. Wasn't there then, was it?
Well, a bike launch might suffice.
Yeah.
Is it, how long a track is it?
Yeah, long and quite involved. Yeah, it's a really nice track.
Because that sounded like a long, involved track.
It is a long, involved track, isn't it, that? So I'm going to go. There's a corner straight after the start and finish, which Navarra has not got. It's a start and finish, long uphill straight, flipping horrendously fast corner, and then into some slow stuff. And all the slow stuff at Navarra's at the end of the lap, which wasn't that.
Okay.
That was horn, bum, 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 down the box. So I don't even think that's Donington.
So, Alton's hard into Old Hall.
Is it Cadwell, though? It's Cadwell or Alton, isn't it?
I don't know why, but it didn't feel like Cadwell at all. So.
No, Alton.
Alton Park.
Alton.
Hey, well done, James. Brilliant. Well done, mate.
I'm only going off the fact it seemed
That's
a
all
short
we've got
start
left.
and finish, mate. Yeah.
So, James, look, the big news this week is in World Superbikes is the retirement of Jonathan Rea. Or at the end of this season, he's announced that he's quitting. 6 times world champion, record-breaking number of race wins. It's someone we've loved having around for a long time.
Yeah, that's not just big news in World Superbike. For me, the big news in motorcycle racing in general and motorcycle in general. How long you got? If you want me to start waffling about how good Jonathan Rea was, I just tell me when to stop. The man, complete genius, in my opinion. He did things on a motorbike that, especially early on in his career, he had a couple of wins at Assen on a 10-carter bike that and we were commentating on it, and I was watching things that unless you have a reasonable experience and skill level in motorbikes, you wouldn't even have seen it. It was spectacularly difficult to do what he was doing. And I've spoken to other racers about it, and you shake your head. You don't know what. Pretty similar to the way Toprak has been over the last few years.
Yes.
But lots and lots to admire about Jonathan Rea, not just the stats. Most number of World Superbike wins, most number of World Superbike podiums, most number of World Superbike points. The list is endless. OBE, MBE, all deserved. But also some of the things I saw late in his career. At the twilight of his career, after 6 World Championships, enough money to rest. I know that this was his sort of incentive, but
True enough. But when he was a kid, won schoolboy motocross titles. Someone did say to him, "You could do better. You could earn more money going on road racing, you know." And he kind of decided that much as he loved motocross, he might give that
any
a bash.
professional, it has to be a factor.
Yeah.
But the point is, at the time when he didn't need the extra money, he got 6 titles under his belt. He's racing against somebody who is clearly going to be fairly special in Toprak. Jonathan Rea, on an aging Kawasaki, but that by then wasn't seen as good as the Yamaha. He's quite prepared to stick his neck out to the point of throwing himself upside down to a Marshall post. Well, I take me after that. Nothing bad to say, but only good things from me about Jonathan Rea.
Can I just say that I really loved it when he was on those 10-carter Hondas. I loved his time on Hondas because he had to work so hard to keep that thing remotely competitive. Really.
At the time, the bike wasn't competitive, and I won't mind saying that. He made wins out of it. He made that bike do things that absolutely nobody else could have done on that bike.
I remember his crew chief Chris Pike at one point.
At various stages, yeah.
Yeah, and I remember Chris saying when Jonathan had crashed fairly spectacularly on what's the double left-hander near the end of the lap at Imola, the Rivazza.
Yeah,
coming out of Rivazza, he just laid it down. And when I had word with Chris afterwards, asking what had happened, and he said, "You know what? He was just thinking, I'm going to go through here as fast as I possibly can. I've had enough of this. I'm going to go through this bend faster than I've ever done before, and I'll either stay upright or I won't." And he didn't quite.
Well, that is the general idea of racing.
Yeah,
Jack.
That's very true. Yes, but to we normal couch numpties, it's a kind of fairly extraordinary thing to do, really.
Everything is skill level, articulate when you talk to him. All of that, but actually still quite prepared to be a bit of a brute at times if it
Yes.
was necessary, which a lot of people wouldn't have liked. I loved it. The fact that he'd done all he'd done, he still wanted to put a shift in, and
Yes.
you know, so yeah, I'll take me after you, son.
And that means we're going to take a slightly different route into our trivia. I'm going to question you on Jonathan Rea and his career, and see what you remember of it. See what I remember of it.
Prepare yourself.
So track trivia goes on a slightly different route today.
All right. Sorry.
We're talking about Jonathan Rea.
Jack Track Trivia, powered by Metzler Tyres. Now, ladies and gentlemen, your host, Jack Burnicle.
This is going to be stat-based, isn't it? Got to be.
Well, it is really, yeah.
Yeah, go on.
Which, in a way, is rather unfair, but there you go. Question 1. Where and when was Jonathan's first race win on tarmac?
Where and when? Well, he raced. Jonathan Rea raced a 125 Honda first on tarmac. That might have been in some. Right, so I'm going to go. How old is he? When was he born? 87. So 97 would be 10. So he's going to be. I reckon he's going to be 15. Right, so 96. It's going to be 02. And it's going to be Kirkiston.
That's a really well worked out.
But
it was
wrong.
actually late 2003. The Sunflower Trophy at Bishop's Court.
Yeah,
September
well,
the 20th.
do you know what? I knew it'd be
2003.
Northern Ireland, so that means it really would have been either Bishop's Court or...
Yes.
Yeah, and I knew it'd be... All right, go on.
You had a
I'm
50-50
not
chance on
disappointed
that
with
one,
that.
didn't
Yeah.
Question 2, which it relates to the same thing, really. What year, where, and in what class did Jonathan debut in the BSB paddock?
Still 125.
Yeah.
I still think it was a 125. It was a Red Bull liveried Honda, and because even then people were picking up on the fact that it were going places.
They backed him from the start. Yeah.
03 first race. That's got to be 04. Might be 03. Might be, but it was late 03. I'm going 04, and I'm going to go Donington.
It was 03, and it was Silverstone.
Right,
I
so
think he
right
did.
at the-
I think he did a full season,
04.
and actually got in 03 and got on the podium once that year.
Did he?
on the 125?
Right. Okay. So,
So
his first ever
he won that-
season,
he won
was
that
in
Bishop's
BSB 125.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
that Bishop's Court race was at the end of that, pretty much the end of that season.
Well, he can't have done the full season then if that were his first race on tarmac.
No, it was his first win on time.
Ah, sorry. Got you. All right.
At what circuit did Jonathan win his first British Superbike race, and what was the year?
I reckon he won his first Superbike race. It were either Knockhill or it might have been Mondello, I've got a feeling. There's an odd thing happened, and it was on a Red Bull blade.
Tense silence.
06 Mondello.
Very good. Half of that, 50% right. 07 Mondello.
Bollocks. I'm actually still
You're getting
doing
close.
all right.
You're close. You're doing all right.
Even though
there.
wrong.
Wrong. How many British BSB races did Jonathan win in total before heading to the World Superbike
Not that many,
Championship?
because he went pretty quick. So he only had 08. He had a full season in Super Sport. So we're only talking about 07.
07 was on the HM Plant Honda with Keogh. So he had some stiff opposition in his own camp.
4.
5. Question 5.
Still very happy.
You've just mentioned question 5. Jonathan competed in the 2008 Super Sport World Championship with Tenkate Honda, and he finished second overall. To whom?
Andrew Pitt.
Very good.
Andrew Pitt's second championship. First one was 01 maybe.
Yeah.
Impressive bloke, Pitt, by the way, as a side note.
Yeah.
That's a long time between championships. Good.
Wonderful guest commentator.
He's I tell you what, a clever lad him,
Yeah. He got very annoyed with me always saying, oh, Jack, it's not Aussie, it's Aussie. He got very
Quite rightly.
exasperated with my inability to handle that, or to get told. Question 6. Man, that's been the story of my life. Question 6. At what circuit did Jonathan win his first World Superbike race, and what was the year?
I've got a feeling he excelled at Assen, so I'm going to go Assen, and I'm going to go. I am sure his exceptional years before he should have been winning were at certain circuits that he was unbelievably good at. One of them Assen, and I'm sure from 10 he were winning pretty. I'm going to go 9, and I'm going to go Assen.
Oh, good shot. It was Misano in race 2 in 2009.
9, yeah.
Yeah.
He loved the big, involved. He went well everywhere, didn't he? In the end, but he first started going with these really involved, kind of intricate kind of places, like Misano, like Imola, like Assen. You know, the ones where you got to be a rider. Yeah. So anyway, yeah.
Question 7. Jonathan won 6 consecutive. Well, incidentally, I'm glad that we're always calling him Jonathan, because that's what he really wanted to be called.
Yeah, it's because his dad was known
as Johnny.
As Johnny.
And his granddad was John.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Question 7. Jonathan won 6 consecutive World Superbike titles between 2015 and 2020.
Yeah.
But at what circuit did he win his first SBK title at?
Oh, God, this is so hard. When did he win his first championship? So 15.
2015.
15. I know that in 14, Sylvan won it, and it was definitely decided at Qatar, at Doha.
Yes.
So did we go to Doha? Did he win it at the last round, which I think would have been Doha in 15? Doha.
It may well have been the last round, but actually he won it at Jerez.
Did he?
2 rounds still left in the season.
He did, and I tell you what, I should have known that, because when he'd won it, somebody came out with a Brian Reed helmet replica.
Yes.
Because he'd been the last Northern Irish world champion in road race motorcycle, in short circuit.
Yes. I salute you, Brian Reed.
I knew that.
Lovely little guy.
Yeah, he is actually, yeah.
Question 8.
Brian's kid Simon's lovely as well.
Yes.
Real nice bloke, yeah.
Question 8. Jonathan holds the all-time World Superbike race wins record. How many victories does he have?
119.
That's a fairly frightening amount. That's just twice as many as Foggy.
I remember him overtaking Foggy, and you were just thinking, he can't go much more than this. Well, Foggy was anyway. Yeah. Foggy ended on 59, didn't he?
Yes.
Yeah.
But strangely enough, question 9 is where and when did Jonathan surpass Foggy's 59 World Superbike race
God,
wins?
I defy anybody except Jonathan to figure that one out. No, there would have been. Not going to know it. So, say it again. Let me try and have a guess.
When did he surpass?
Where did he get to 60?
Yes.
And when?
Yes.
God, that's going to be.
That's hard.
I'm going to 2017, and it was at Imola.
It was the 9th of June 2018 at race 1 at Brno.
Oh, wrong and wrong then.
Wrong and wrong. But not far off.
In terms of?
Question 10 is one that I must admit it's always really kind of quite tickled me. He almost won the BBC Sports Personality of the Year in one season. And he finished second, and the BBC were so appalled at having motorcycles interfering with their favourite and much revered Sports Personality of the Year trophy thing that they never allowed it to happen again. They turned that Sports Personality of the Year into what I perceived as complete crap by saying you can only vote for these 6 people we've selected for you, and usually they were connected with sports that the BBC showed. And so, of course, motorcycle sport scarcely gets anything on the BBC.
He finished second in 17, I think.
Very good. They made sure that he, despite that huge
couldn't win.
surge of support, he couldn't
yeah.
win it again.
He did, however, with the Northern Irish Sportsman of the Year perennially for several years, which he should have done. And he should have won the BBC Sports Person.
Absolutely.
I mean, I'm biased anyway, right? Because I know what it takes, and it doesn't just take skill at your sport. You've got to be brave, you've got to be hard, you've got to come back from it, all that. That are very admirable assets, in my opinion, maybe not everybody's. But I think still second for a motorcyclist in the modern era, in a sport that isn't covered by BBC, is a win for me. So good on you, lad.
And they want, you know, they wanted their half dozen selections to come from. Yeah, well, to me, much lesser sports. Much lesser sports.
In my opinion.
People, to be honest,
other sports,
several, many of whom I'd never heard of, to be truthful. Anyway, that was 10. And that was probably
my worst ever score ever.
I think you got 2 right.
Yeah, but I got lots nearly right. Jack.
You got lots nearly right, but you got questions 8 and 10 absolutely right. So 2 out of 10. Well done.
Yeah. I'd like to see how well people did at home.
Yes, that's true. Yeah. Who knows? We might find out.
But anyway, none of the fact that I didn't get many right, Jonathan. Sorry.
But the fact that you were so near with so many of them was a pretty fair reflection.
Thank you.
The Outside Line Podcast.
Powered by Red Torpedo.
What are we on, episode 5?
Yes.
And we have our first outside guest. And you can't get a better guest for me, good mate of mine, and a bloke who is so knowledgeable about his racing, especially World Superbike, second to none. And it is...
Charlie Hiscott.
Come on, Charlie. Hey!
I'm nervous. Hello.
Oh, hang on, is he going to be popular?
Oh,
has he passed the test?
You're so popular that Sprout's
You got him straight.
straight
He's thinking about the money. That's what he's thinking about.
You're definitely fitting in, that's key.
Yeah.
You've been
Don't worry, I
accepted by
paid him. I had to lubricate the wheels a bit.
accepted by Sprout. Jonathan Rea.
Yeah.
Charlie, I mean, you've been there, grid walking, got to know him. If you don't know Charlie, well, you know what Charlie did, but Charlie got to know riders, and the reason you got the respect you did is because you didn't ask them the dumb questions, right? You asked them the questions that people who were knowledgeable about World Superbike went, yeah, that's what I want to know.
So they said,
not that how's your setup, the inane kind of stuff. You asked them proper questions, and you got them. You raised their eyebrows a lot of times, but actually when they went away and in the cool light of day, they thought, yeah, well, you know, fair question that. So what's your thoughts on Jonathan Rea?
Well, I mean, it's the end of a stellar career, isn't it? I mean, like you said, I think, you know, Jonathan was the perfect racer, really, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Ruthless. You know, you talk about riders with their race faces. Jonathan had the race face of all the people, you know. And such a nice guy away from the racetrack.
Yeah.
Really good personality. The side that people didn't see about Jonathan was just a really good lad. We've all had a few good laughs. We've had a few good drinks with Jonathan. Really, really nice guy. But Thursday morning, that was it. As soon as you turn up at the circuit, I mean, he's on it, focused, really focused.
But also, he had, no matter what had happened on track, you'd speak to him and he had a lovely, articulate way of, without getting too technical, of making everything understandable at least.
But also huge. So he was I found Jonathan a great person to interview. He understood the TV side of it. He gave you exactly what you wanted. But he was also human. So there were a few things that Jonathan was a bit overly ruthless. There were some things that happened where people were, there was a bit of jumping and screaming, and Jonathan was always like in a bit of a panic. And I feel like I got to know Jonathan well enough to sort of really say to him, look, you can't, there was the top right one, the green line one, right, was a really famous one where Jonathan had, everyone remembers you remember when Top Right went on the green paint? Yeah. And Jonathan did the old thing in Park Summit.
Assen?
No, it was Magny-Cours.
Magny-Cours.
So they all come back. There's a right old flap on. Jonathan knows he's not dropped a bollock, but he's, he could become quite unpopular here, right, because of what he's done. So he's flapping a little bit. He's just got off the bike. I had a good enough relationship with Jonathan that I would go and try and say to him, because he's obviously not aware of really what's going on he's looking at what's going on in his little bubble with his team, not really aware of how everybody else is seeing it. So I said, look, I went to speak to Jonathan and said, you've got to come and talk about this, mate, because
it's a thing.
Otherwise you're going to look
Yeah.
really bad, right?
Yeah.
So come on, say this. And I could produce Jonathan, only in those situations. He didn't need any producing, but in those situations when there's an awful lot going on in his brain, he's under a lot of pressure, he would really listen, and we'd do an interview and he'd say what he needed to say, and he would trust me enough to say that I wasn't putting the words in his mouth, but I was making sure he got the right sentiment out with it.
He also trusted you enough to know that you weren't throwing him under the bus.
Exactly that.
journalistically.
Yeah, exactly that. Yeah. So it was good. I loved working with Jonathan. Me and my old mate Dazzler over there, and us guys. We spent a lot of time travelling around with him. We spent a lot of time interviewing him, and he's the other guy that I really liked to work with in my early career was Troy Bayliss, right? Because just the nicest, most down-to-earth guy in the world. And Jay, you look at the people you work with through World Superbikes. Actually, I feel really lucky to work with Bayliss, Jonathan Rea.
Yeah.
So now he's called a halt on it. I did actually give him a call. I mean, look, I've worked in World Superbikes and MotoGP and BSB for a long time, but I can't ring up Mark Marquez or anyone in MotoGP. But I haven't. I message Jonathan every now and again. Messaged him the other day. I'm going on this podcast. Can we have a chat? Straight away, he gives me a call. He was on a golf day or something like that. Do you know what I mean? You know how busy his life is. Had a lovely chat with him. What you're doing, how's it going, all that sort of stuff. So I think it's the right time to finish his career. He's, it's not happening for him on the Yamaha and stuff like that. Been so successful. Wealthy guy, family. His kids are doing fantastically at football, like really A-class footballers.
Okay.
And I think he's just decided that actually now is the time, while he's still fit, still in really good shape, to pull out of it. I don't think, I asked him what he was going to do, and obviously he's looking at World Endurance. I think it's hard for most riders, to come fully out of it. When I look at Sylvain, who carried on doing endurance and some other stuff and got into sports cars, and I think Jonathan's planning on doing something.
Yeah.
But he did say, I'm just going to wait. I'll get to the end of the season. I'm not signed up to anything, so I'm going to wait and see how I feel at the end of the season and then just go from there.
The only thing I would say is that a lot of criticism went his way when he jumped ship from Kawasaki, who he'd been with through all the success of his career. Because people were saying at the time, but he can't be an ambassador for Kawasaki now. Kawasaki would have looked after him for years. And actually, I don't think that matters much to him. I know that sounds, but exactly.
I thought he was going to go to Ducati. I totally understand why he went out. Like, we know that over the years, Kawasaki, the homologation process was their
forte.
Yeah, they were homologating bikes all the time. Chaz Davis saying, "Oh my God, we get given a bike at the beginning of the year,
and that's what we work with."
Yeah, and hopefully it's a good bike.
Kawasaki worked with the team so closely that every year, even though the bike looked exactly the same, a new bike. They had 17 different ZX10Rs homologated.
That's it, 17. Exactly right. Yeah, exactly. So, and Yamaha had 5 or something like that. And
just
Ducati
to
had
give
3
their team
or 2.
That's the way to work that system.
So when Kawasaki decide, for whatever reason, we're not playing that game anymore, we can't afford to do these things, blah blah. So it's like, well, so what are you planning? And they're like, well, you got to piss with the dick you've got, essentially. So he's like, well, I'm out of here. Do you know what I mean? And he's up against rivals like Top Rack, and Alex Lowe's is going really well. So I sort of get the Yamaha change. I thought he'd go to Ducati, but I don't think that. He said to me, I remember him saying to me a couple of times through the years, I'd love to finish my career on a Ducati. That obviously didn't happen for whatever reasons. It definitely wasn't money issues. Whether there wasn't a space for him or whatever it was, I don't know. But I think also it's a brave move in those circumstances, which actually, Jonathan, brave in every sense of the word, to move on to Yamaha then was a really brave move. And the one thing you know about Jonathan is he has given it everything he's got. It's come to the point where it's like, well,
I think if you went back 10 years, I think he would have cracked the Yamaha. I think it was a time in his career when maybe that was a feature. I think 2 things you could possibly, and these are only tiny things, you could look back on in that career and think, well, I wonder what would have happened then. Ducati's one of them, right? The dominant bike in that championship over the years, not his years.
And for the next few years, by the looks of it.
Yeah, exactly that. But the other thing is MotoGP. Right, he had I think two races, scored points 7th and 8th, maybe.
He did fantastic. Wet, really tricky conditions, lost practice sessions,
And to me, I don't know whether he does this. I might not if I were in his position now. But there is an argument to say, why didn't somebody give him when the Honda was a really good bike? And I think he could have made a go of it.
Yeah,
Honestly,
I agree.
I think he could have made a go of it.
I've spoken to him, obviously, I remember speaking to him about it when it was happening, but also for years afterwards, I talked to him about those 2 races.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to say he regrets it, but his remit is, when you go into those, standing rides or whatever you want to call them.
You don't touch the bike.
The remit is you don't touch the bike and you definitely don't crash the bike.
Yeah.
That's it. Just ride it. So he didn't throw. He says, I probably should have thrown myself into it and risked everything.
He's told me that. He said, I didn't take a risk and I wasn't allowed to get the bike. Even though it was a different, I wouldn't have known what I wanted in those 2 rides on the bike that was totally alien. Yeah. But he said they wouldn't let me do a lot to the bike, and they without telling him don't crash it, impressed upon him the importance of not crashing the motorbike. Yeah. And actually, he said, I wish I'd ignored him. Yeah. So he thinks he could have had, even then, and you believe him, I think he could have had a... But anyway.
His skill levels are up there with the greatest of them all in MotoGP and World Superbikes. Without a doubt, yeah. It's a shame. I think he got offered a chance to go with Suzuki a few years later. But that was when Suzuki were the bottom, at the very bottom. And obviously, Suzuki then came good. But it was a hell of a gamble. And when you're at that point in your career and you're raking in a load of money and you're winning races and everybody, it's like, do you want to go and jump on this old... this thing that's not really proven, might not be any good, and that could be the end of your wonderful journey. Do you know what I mean? So he didn't do it, stayed with World Superbikes and carried on.
The other thing you would say about him in that respect is he was intelligent and savvy enough you would trust. We don't know exactly what his decision making process were based on, and we don't know what he were offered. It's all speculation in a lot of ways to us. But actually, he wouldn't have made a mistake given the facts that were in front of him at that time, because he's clever.
100%, yeah. He has surrounded himself by amazing people like Perry Reba, who is undoubtedly a fantastic. We all know that crew chiefing is not about telling mechanics to put a click on here and a click on there. It's about looking after that person and making sure that they are at 100%. And Perry Reba and Jonathan Rea were literally the best crew chief rider pairing I've come across. Yeah. Then you put Andrew Pitt on the scene, Fabien Foray. Yeah. You've got a really, really solid... One of the things that always amazed me about Kyle Ride, actually, was Jonathan... I can't remember what year it was, a few years ago. Kyle Ride got a ride riding for, was it Puccetti?
Kawasaki.
Puccetti Kawasaki, I think it was, wasn't it?
With Sofoglu as his teammate.
With Sofoglu as his
teammate
and
manager. Which was not an easy thing to
yeah.
jump into, by the way, at 18.
And I remember Kyle Ride coming in Phillip Island, first race, you'll remember this, Dazzler. Kyle came in and Jonathan Rea is standing there with a paddock stand. Andrew Pitt's waiting over there and Keenan Sofoglu is waiting there. All to come in and it's like, Jonathan... It's in the middle of Phillip Island's a bad circuit for Jonathan. He likes it, but it's always been a bad circuit. So he's got a lot on his plate. But he always had enough time to try and help someone else. And he was really,
I can go further than that. That year, at the end of that year, they got on really well, did Kyle Ride and Jonathan. Jonathan tried to help him a lot. Kyle was at a stage in his career, in his life, where it wasn't going to work for him. Jumping into the second berth in a team that had a world champion already in it, and a dominant one in terms of personality and everything. Yeah. In Ken and Sofoglu wasn't an easy task. But at the end of that season, Kyle's looking for money to continue whatever career he's got going. Bear in mind, Kyle's from a working class family, not a ton of money. He's always, his career's from mini bikes up, has survived on locals getting involved, putting a village fair on for him, and the local pub having a whip round for him, which is brilliant in my opinion. But we went to Jacksdale to the community centre and we ran a chat night, and me and Jonathan Rea and Kyle Ride kind of ran it and I just thought I'd have done it for Kyle anyway because I live up the road, but Jonathan was world champ, travelled a lot, and was prepared to put his time in for that.
Yeah,
brilliant,
amazing. Yeah. He's always. I think Jonathan's always thought of himself as a bit of an underdog, so he's always championed the underdog. You know what I mean? And then when he had, when he started a family, Jonathan is the most ruthless rider I've ever come across, and that includes everyone else that I've ever mingled with in racing. Yeah, Jonathan was the razor-edged, ruthless. Nothing is going to stop me.
Yeah.
And what was quite funny, I'd had kids by then. So I was having my own life journey, like we all are. I'd had a couple of kids, so it was sort of changing me, and you become a bit slightly different person. You're not so. Jonathan then has 2 children, and the change, do you know what I mean? It's like, then all of a sudden he couldn't stop this sort of slightly warm side coming out. Which sort of like, so it's like, Jonathan was always talking about how his real skill was being able to, shut the door on the garage and forget about that and go and get on with family life. Yeah. But he made it sound quite easy, but it's not easy, because you know what relationships are like, and especially relationships with kids. So relationships with kids, winning world champions at the, it's like together. Amazing. The guy is a machine of work. Do you know what I mean?
But some people can. He's obviously one of these riders who can distinguish. And Foggy always was,
Yeah.
Foggy had kids when they were racing. Yeah, his missus there with the kids at the race meetings.
Yeah.
Like Jonathan, it would have been difficult for most riders and me. I don't think it would have worked for me. But actually, they call it clocking out, don't they?
Yeah.
You clock on, you go in the garage, you do what you got to do, and then you clock out, and you don't think about it. So difficult in racing.
And I think Jonathan always said that KRT were a fantastic team. They were very good with Taj and the kids and everything like that. They, obviously Taj, coming from a racing background, knew when not to go into the garage. He knew not to get involved. You know what I mean? Perfect in that respect. And when things were going on, they did. So I think KRT were really good in that. And
remember, Perariva had a kid around about the same time.
Yeah.
So suddenly he'd become a dad himself.
I really like that team. They were a really nice team to work around. It was funny because when Top Rack suddenly started doing very, very well a long time ago, the KRT team suddenly became a bit more serious. And having been able to just walk in there with a cup of tea and talk to whoever you wanted, all of a sudden it was like you were getting these funny looks, and it was like, we don't really want you in here. And then it'd be like, you'd have a PR girl come up to you and say, hey, can we help you? You go, no.
Who are you?
But you definitely, it's serious. It became a bit more serious at the time.
Well, I think we've established that we're all Jonathan Rea fans.
Yes.
To quite a big extent. So I've got one, but what is your? And I'm guessing you asked him.
I did ask him.
Right.
Yeah.
So what's your best JR? And there's lots of them. What's your best JR moment?
Mine was. Do you remember when our adorable Norrie Hager was in contention with Ben Spies for that World Championship in 2009, and Jonathan knocked him off at the Nürburgring in that right-hander. Would it be the right-hander just after the start and finish?
The downhill one?
Yes.
We got down a step almost.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, and it was, you were talking about his ruthless streak. That was a bit naughty. I just thought at the time that was a bit naughty. It's hardly the most memorable thing that you ought to contribute, but it kind of...
an example of...
It was an example of that streak of his, I think.
Yeah, there were quite a lot of that. And actually, I think it mattered to him who it was... Because Argo were brutal, at times.
Yes.
We all liked how close he rode.
Yeah.
We all loved Argo.
Yes. Him and JT, I tell you what, they were swapping a lot of paint, a lot
of
Vallelunga places like that.
So as a rider, and definitely JR, it definitely matters who it is. You think, you don't want to knock anybody off, but you think, I'm going to give him slightly less room than what I would do.
What's yours then, Whit?
I think it's 2010, Assen. One of them years when we were commentating, and I was watching that and I couldn't speak hardly. It was...
What, on the Honda?
Yeah. An uncompetitive Honda.
Yeah.
Early on in his World Superbike career, not expected to win on either of those fronts, and made it happen, and just made it happen by sheer, force of will and skill. And it just happened. Yeah. And he's doing things on that bike that I thought, I wouldn't know how he's doing it.
You could see him. You could see him because he was always on a different line.
Yeah,
it was always 6 inches to the right.
He was making it work by
to the...
going on different lines because
it
just incredible. And
that would have something to do with that motocross background. That selection of lines in motocross, you're looking for different lines, and if he thought he could get a little advantage,
for me, he was a clever man who knew how to work round a problem better than most of the people.
Working for a very clever team.
Yeah, as well.
Yes,
as well.
Yeah, Ronald and Gary Tenkate, they were great.
Also, excellent smokers.
Oh, yeah, they were. Great for coffee in the morning.
Coffee, drinking and smoking.
Coffee and a fag in the morning with Ronald.
And in Ronald's case, humour as well.
Listen, the only reason I'm saying that is because they're so funny.
Man.
The dry sense of humour you can imagine.
Funniest man.
So what's yours then?
Well, listening to you guys talking about Mondello, reminded me of the first time I heard Jonathan Rea's name, and I was
I know
probably
what you're gonna say.
I was walking to the circuit with you on Friday morning or something like that, and it was like, and it must have been on Sunday morning. I think we used to arrive on a Saturday, and I can't remember, but I remember saying who's on pole, and someone said Jonathan Rea, and I'm like, what? And they said, oh, he's some local specialist kid. I was like, right, okay, and he was on that Red Bull Honda.
Yeah, Red Bull Honda,
and he was on pole, and he tangled with someone at the start. That run down into turn one.
Yes.
He tangled his brake lever long before the little thingies that went around the brake levers. He tangled with someone and he went over the handlebars at a humongous rate. Massive crash. Restarted the race. I can't remember where he finished, but I do remember Sean Emmett, who was in that race. That was the meeting where Sean... He was mental.
I had a... Is that the meeting?
He did, huh? I think it was...
Sean Emmett
we only went there 2 years, didn't we? I think we went to Monday twice. So I don't know whether it was that one or the one afterwards, but Emmett was on a stand-in.
Yeah.
He was on a comeback ride.
Yeah.
And everyone thought he was drunk because he was riding like a man possessed. And obviously he could well have been drunk. He went through. I seem to remember he went through a gravel trap. We used to race with a guy called Chris Tiddle, a mad Irish guy who used to. You'd go karting with him, and he'd disappear, and suddenly he'd appear in front of you because he'd cut the course in half. Yeah. And Sean Emmett did that. He got nerved off into a gravel trap. And instead of coming round and back onto it, he just went through across the circuit and rejoined him. He missed out like half a lap. And everyone was like,
it wasn't one incident. Every corner he did something.
Yeah, he was doing things.
Backing into people, but actually had the pace to stay somewhere near the front when he was doing it. He had really good pace.
So favourite memory for me, I've got a standout one. And actually I asked Jonathan about it. So I said, what's your favourite memories? And he said... riding at Suzuka, Misano 2019. He's not short of options for favourite things. Yeah. But for me, the standout ride, one of the best rides I've ever seen anywhere. I've got two favourite rides. One of them was Casey Stoner. The second one was Jonathan Rea at Lausitz-Ring, race 2 in the wet, where Jonathan had hemorrhaged about 75 points in the championship in the 2 meetings before that. A crash, a DNF, a technical, right, for whatever the reasons. But his back is against the wall now, right? We've come out for race 2 at Lausitz, and Jonathan is under so much pressure, and it is wet, like you cannot believe. And it's one of those things where you can fold under pressure. You know what it's like in a wet race, right? If you go 99.9%, you're fucked, because everyone is going to go 101, and anyone who's not really got a chance of a dry win is going to kill it to get the wet win, right? So Jonathan's got 2 options. He can risk it and take it steady and try and finish it and blah, blah, blah. But Jonathan, and only Jonathan, I think, could make this decision, just went for it. And he took off, right? He won the race by, I don't know, 12 seconds, something like that. But it wasn't really the riding that was amazing, which was, but the mentality
that made him do it.
To say, like, everyone would have been, I've got to take it steady, I'm under so much pressure, I'm going to lose the championship, blah, blah, blah. Jonathan was like, put all that shit away and just gave it death and absolutely shat on anyone. And actually, when I asked Jonathan about where he thought his best race was, that was the one that he said.
Honestly?
Yeah, honestly. And I said to him, I hadn't said anything about Lausitz. We've talked about it before, to be fair.
Right, yeah,
He said, actually, one of the best races, and it wasn't the best way that he rode or anything like that, but for pure mentality, you want to look in a racer's brain, there it was laid open for you there, and I'll never, ever forget that. Amazing. Yeah. Amazing.
Absolutely.
So, Charlie, we've got Magny Court coming up this weekend. Right. The next episode of World Superbikes. No.
Summer's over. You know, you turn up at Magny Court in the morning and it's cold and it's dewy. And you know that the summer's gone. Do you remember that?
It's autumn.
Yeah. I never feel like, in my art college days, I always thought, going back to art college late, in September, it was still lovely.
Well, you're fine.
But look,
anyway.
you've got some. There must be some breaking news from World Supers right now, isn't there? Besides
some speculation, some rumour.
Yeah, there's a fair bit of rumour. But I mean, I don't think you have to know rumour or speculation to see that actually next year there's going to be no Top Rack, no Jonathan.
Yeah.
It looks like Mikey van der Mark's going to go to AMA or something like that. Not BSB, we know that. So Bautista's going to the Barney bike. So it looks like, I think it's Lecuona was going to go to potentially on the BMW.
But now,
but I think the BMW. I've got to be honest with you, right? I sound really knowledgeable, but I'm not, because I've not been in the paddock. But I speak to my good friend, the World Feed commentator Steve English. So I spoke to him a couple of days ago. He gave me all the info. But it looks like getting a rider on the BMW that Top Rack's left is going to be quite hard. Not the one that Top Rack's left, the other bike. because it's only a 1 year deal. So Bradley Ray, obviously, that might well suit him.
Yeah.
But I just wonder that the other thing that I'm hearing is that Ducati are bringing out a new bike next year.
Yeah, it is a new bike next year.
Yeah, new bike.
I mean, it's been...
Pirro is wearing a groove in Mugello testing it. Big aerodynamic changes. Now, the one thing we know about Ducati is they are the masters of aero. Gigi Dall'Igna is the master of aero, and we also know that Gigi Dall'Igna is all over the World Superbike project as much as he is the MotoGP project.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
So I think that bodes quite worrying for the championship.
Else.
Yeah,
because I think what we're doing about Ducati is they look at a set of rules and make it work.
Yeah.
They will definitely make it work.
Especially when it comes to aero,
When
you're literally moving shit around.
Yeah, but actually, there's a couple of teams looking at. We've mentioned OMG or nitrous competitions. What was OMG? But also, there's another couple of teams looking at trying to secure some 26 brand new.
Really?
Ducatis for yeah.
I mean, I spoke to. I'm obviously travelling around with Silvan Guintoli for a long time.
Yeah.
We talked a lot about his work on the BMW, and he obviously. I mean, Silvan is such a bright person, really intelligent.
Yeah.
So talking about aero with him, you suddenly realise that actually, power and electronics and stuff like that, they're all vital. But I tell you what, aero is where you can get huge gains quite easily. And he's obviously, coming through developing that BMW and making that into a championship winner, or helping make that into a championship winner. A lot of that is down to the aero and what they're doing with wings and stuff like that. Aero affects the turning. It's not just pushing you into the floor, how you get out of corners, how you get into corners, everything about it. It's so important. So that I find that quite ominous. They've got a new bike coming out. I mean, it's gone full circle from, I don't see Kawasaki bringing anything new to the party. No. Yamaha don't seem to be bringing anything else.
No.
BMW's going to struggle because of the contract situation and the way that the bike is not going to change. And obviously, Top Rack's been flattering that bike for
I was just going to say, and because they haven't got Top Rack.
So I think that's slightly worrying, but as we all know, these things work in cycles, and the old guard move out. It was like when all the Brits went there in the first place with Cal and everybody. There's going to be a year or two of a transition where, Bautista and some of the people who probably should be going now
will go.
Effectively are. And obviously, what happens with Top Rack? I don't think I don't know. But I could see him being back in World Superbikes. I think if he has... The one thing about Top Rack, who I also got to know quite well, is that he wants to be happy and he's not interested in money. So if he goes to MotoGP and doesn't like it, I think he'll bail on it. I really think he will. He's not going to do anything. He doesn't do anything he doesn't want to do. That was the one thing when it was coming up about, are you going to go to MotoGP, blah, blah. He just wasn't interested in it. He wanted to win a world championship, but I think he was like, I'm really happy here. Life's fucking great.
Yeah. But
a bit like Norrie did.
What have I said? What did I say last episode?
What did you say last episode?
Trust me, I've got a feeling. Don't know. I know this is only based on my feeling. I think this is I think it's a bit of a kind of red herring. This on a Yamaha in MotoGP. I think he's there for one reason. That's to give him the experience he needs come 27. When I think BMW are going to be in, and I think he'll be back on a BM.
Do you in MotoGP?
Yep, that's what I think.
Why do you think that?
Rule changes for 27.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. If you're ever gonna, in a period of time, gonna make a fresh entry.
They bought all their data, haven't they? They bought all of
Suzuki's data.
They bought
Suzuki's data. They're testing a V4, we hear. And if you're gonna do it, 27's a year to do it. And if you're gonna do it with an existing rider you've got, who better than Top Rack?
Yeah.
But you want Top Rack with a bit of MotoGP experience.
Got to learn the circuits.
There you go.
Yeah, and the tyres. And that's the other thing that I haven't heard mentioned very much is they're going to Pirelli. When it goes to Pirelli, is Top Rack going to be in a better position than anybody else? We don't.
I think is Top Rack going to be in a better position on the new Pirellis than it would be on Michelin's? Yes.
Can I quantify that?
Go on.
Well, when Top Rack did the
this is fascinating.
When Top Rack did the test with Cal Crutchlow,
yep.
I spoke to Cal straight after that, and one of the doubts that people put on Top Rack is you can't treat a Michelin front tyre the way that Top Rack treats it.
Yeah,
it won't work. And sure enough, when Top Rack did do the test, that was the one thing Cal was saying, was that he was really struggling, like braking and running on in corners by 20, 30 metres. Yeah. To be fair to Top Rack, first morning on a one-day test, what can you do? All he's trying to do is prove himself a little bit. Yeah, so I understand that completely, and I don't think it's relevant to anything. But if you can't treat the Michelin like that now, then when you get onto a Pirelli, Top Rack might have that little bit of an advantage.
I think it will have.
Yeah, I hope so.
I think it'd be definitely better for him than him jumping on a Michelin.
No one knows what he's going to do, but I really hope. I would love to see him. Maybe I think it's unlikely in the first year. I can't see him getting anywhere near a podium in the first
Me
year.
neither.
I hope I'm wrong. Second year though, like you said,
New
and then the
rules,
third
new
year,
everything,
Yeah,
level playing field, and mark my words, he'll be on the DM.
We'll mark your words. Well, that's been really fascinating chat to
Yeah.
to listen to from the sidelines, guys.
Yeah, agreed.
Charlie, thank you very much for being our first guest. You've been
Oh,
great.
I've got to say, it's lovely to see you again. I haven't seen you for a long time, but thanks for having me on. I think this is amazing. Keep it up.
Thanks,
Brilliant.
Charlie.
We'll
Brilliant
try
pod.
to.
Keep it going.
And the next section is the Preza Q&A, is what we're going to go to next, James.
Preza Q&A, powered by Metzler Tyres.
So the Preza Q&A, I imagine the first one is directed at me, actually, James. The second two are definitely yours. The first one is from Steve Moore, not Steve Wilf Moore, he hastens to add here. As a County Durham lad, we used to be surrounded by motocross tracks, as I bet most of the UK was back in the day. Lads used to start on here and sometimes go on to circuit racing. Do you think our homegrown talent suffers due to fewer motocross tracks these days? ? Love the podcast. Well, thanks, Steve. And absolutely yes is the simple answer. Because, yes, as when I was a lad in County Durham, we just used to, as you know, James, we just used to have local motocross tracks
did here.
all around.
I did loads of
all
AMG
around.
stuff.
There were so many clubs, little individual clubs scattered around what is a fairly small county. And yes, it has led to a lack of homegrown talent. For example, we just virtually don't have any lads in Grand Prix. We used to have, back in the 80s, we had a lot of lads racing Grand Prix, winning World Championships even in the case of Dave Thorpe. So yes, it has made, it had a terrific impact.
So it's a yes then?
That loss of tracks and available tracks, so it's a big yes, Steve. You're absolutely right on that. The second question is from Paul Mackay, a brilliant show guy, serious and irreverent in equal measures, very enjoyable. My question is for Jamie. Two questions, actually. Without wanting to know figures, unless you want to share, when was the first time in your racing career that you managed to get a decent wage and not have to plough all your different sources of income back into your racing?
Weird one. I think I think a lot of people look back at their career or whatever they do as the best time in that. You know, I'm sure somebody who's into 80s music will say 80s music's the best music ever, or whatever, 50s, whatever. In my time of becoming a professional racer, you wouldn't be able to do it at that level anymore, because now the front people at MotoGP and the front of World Superbike and front of BSB make a lot of money. Nobody else makes anything. In fact, they pay to be there. In my day, you could be a jobbing motorcycle racer in that it didn't cost as much to do, and you could go maybe race at Scarborough, get a couple of grand for starting, maybe win a grand, maybe do a race at Kirkiston, get paid for doing it. You were expecting, there were prize money. God, imagine that. Prize money at
I remember
racing.
you telling me that when you won a Superbike or Super Cup race at Brands, and you were going to receive $6,000, which
I
went home
with 6,600.
two new Suzuki race bikes in that.
How long is it after that I can't get? When's the statute of limitations that I can actually admit something without going to jail? But anyway, I went to Brands Hatch in '87 and won 6,600 quid.
Yes.
I won a race. You got paid then for in that Superstock Championship, fastest lap, pole position, leading it each lap, and I came home. A nice little terrace house would have been 25 grand then, and I won a quarter of that. So I started making reasonable money early on, not life-changing money, but enough to survive on and not have another job. I don't think you can do that as easily now, but I don't think being right at the top of your job was as profitable as what it would be now, for example. Although people like Foggy and Killian and them sort of people made really good money out of it. The Americans, when it was 500 GPs being won by, Roberts and then Rainey and then Lawson and Schwantz, they made really good money. Best year for me was first year in World Superbike with Suzuki, Annie and reasonable money. I remember they don't get paid as much for the most part for wearing helmets or wearing leathers now. We got paid for most of that. And I remember flying out to Italy to FM helmets, which weren't the best helmet at the time. And I had an idea in my head what I wanted, and I wasn't going to settle for any less. And we're dealing in US dollars were the way you dealt then. And I'm not going to settle for less than 15,000 US dollars, right? Which was a chunk of money at the time. Went to sit in the office, typical office with this Italian CEO of FM helmets, and he wrote something on a piece of paper, folded it up, and shoved it across, and it said $45,000. And I went, yes. To be fair, that was a one-off. You know, I earned decent money a couple of times in my career, but I earned enough money not to have to do anything else for most of my career. You understand?
Yes.
I was never asked, even after a bad year, to go and find 200 grand to put into the team to keep racing, which is the case these days. So I've considered myself very lucky to have been doing what I was doing at that time.
Very good. The second part of it, incidentally, adds Paul.
Yeah.
At any time in your career, did you receive what you thought? You've just said that. What you thought at the time was a life-changing contract stroke wage, and if so, for how many years did it continue?
I probably earned enough
FM
money.
helmets.
I probably earned enough money to put money aside for my future, 3 or 4 years, probably, not much more than that.
Okay.
But in terms of, paying your mortgage off, maybe buying a little rental property as you went along, or, I was never one that I was never going to go and spend it on a...
But you motorcycle racing lads have always been very astute with this kind of thing.
I think if you're right, because it's not going to carry on.
Were as well.
The thing about road racing, and I guess motocross and other dangerous sports are, you never, even football, I guess you can break your leg, do your hamstring, whatever. Your next race could be your last race.
Yes.
And you're aware of that, so you don't really want to leave yourself in no man's land if it ends. So most of them are quite savvy at setting a business up. Look at Peter Hickman, runs a couple of businesses, got a bit of property, and I think most
of you lot seem to have that.
Yeah.
Paddock PA, powered by Red Torpedo.
Okay, folks, it's time for the Paddock PA. James.
Yeah, so these are upcoming events that people have informed us of that we can give a bit of a push to. So, first off, East Anglian Cop Dock Bike Show, weekend of 6th and 7th of September. My birthday, you'd know that.
Yep.
It's on the 6th. Anyway, I'll not be going. The premier gathering for motorcycle enthusiasts in the heart of East Anglia at the Trinity Park Showground in Ipswich, Suffolk. An exhilarating annual event that showcases the very best in the biking world. Tickets available online. I guess you just go to, if you put in East Anglian Cop Dock Bike Show.
Next up, the Kick Bike Custom and Classic Bike Show at Sammy Miller's Motorcycle Museum in New Milton. And that's on the 7th of September, the day after your birthday. Tickets and info available at kickback.com.
Yeah, great place as well. Museum's
have you ever been down there?
Yeah, I've been a couple of times. And Sammy generally is there, and he's generally faffing about on some bike like he's 20. Unreal.
He's been trying for ages to get me to go down there.
You need to go.
But it's such a long way.
Go before you die.
Go before he dies, although that's looking unlikely.
I never said that.
As he sails past 90. No, he has said to me, we're all in the staging pen.
Oh, yeah, well, I saw him in a parade lap in the Isle of Man. He's on a Ducati, and I've sort of caught him up on the run into Ramsey, and he's gone winging over the flipping edge at Waterworks. Yeah, like a starfish, landed in a tree. He's back in the paddock 2 hours later, and he was kind of 80 then. Brilliant. Right, next up. Hell of a Bash, back to basics, old school motorcycle rally, 4th to the 7th of September at Calverton, and it's I guess it's at Calverton, and it's in the Sherbrooke Scout Camp, Mansfield Lane, Calverton, Nottingham, MG14 6HP. And it being a scout camp, they've got 18 acres of woodland, they've got toilets, a shower block. I'm guessing they're attracting campers. It's over a long weekend. Shower block, great bands, cheap beer. There you go. Weekend camping £30 on the gate, and early bird tickets available online. Brilliant.
So, James, that's it. It's been an absolute pleasure. I'd like to thank Red Torpedo and Metzler Tyres for their support. That means that we're going to be going for
a bit longer,
all of 4 more episodes potentially. Please do get in contact via our email if you've got any questions you want us to attempt to answer. The outsidelinepodcast@gmail.com is the address. Also, if you at home have liked the show and want to show your support, you can do that by buying us a coffee at buymeacoffee.com link, which is available in the podcast description.
And can I thank Charlie Hiscott? Informative and entertaining as always.
Fantastic.
Why is he not on the telly still? What's happened?
I've got no idea. He's even finally had his teeth done, so he looks even better than ever. Obviously in anticipation.
Excellent.
So, folks, thank you very much. Hope you've enjoyed it. And from me, Jack Bernicle, from dear James Whittam, and for Sprout, who's settled very, very sweetly into his Metzler tyre, we'd like to say thank you very much and see you next time.